it's Ben Mehl. You're listening to episode 1 of Mad Potential, a podcast exploring the importance of motivation, accountability, and desire in the journey to achieving your personal goals. This is the podcast where we talk about motivation, desire, inspiration, in order to help people realize their true potential and get motivated to achieve some really incredible things. I recorded this next segment about a week ago before I had this new microphone, and I felt it did such a great job of answering the question I'm sure you're all wondering right now, which is, who the fuck is Ben Mehl and what does he know about reaching potential? Well, the easy answer is that I'm just a kid from New Jersey who's been very lucky to be around some very intelligent, successful people and learn from them. The long answer is, my whole life I was told, don't live outside the box, try to focus on one thing. You like all these things like art and writing, but guess what? You can't make a living from that, and it's all bullshit. Things people tell you because of their own fears or insecurities will hold you down, and I'm here to tell you that you should live outside the box and do whatever it is you want to do. Do what inspires you. Do what you're passionate about. Live your life to the fullest. I became a writer, an artist, a strength and conditioning coach, a lifestyle coach, and now I get paid to help other people reach their goals. Life is pretty sweet, and it wasn't always sweet for me because I was so afraid to step outside that box like we just talked about and really go for it. I was afraid, how am I going to make a living? What if someone judges me? What if I feel insecure? And it doesn't matter. And that's the beauty of this podcast. We're going to really get into what makes someone successful and what it takes to be successful and have the kind of life that you're excited, that you jump out of bed every morning and can't wait to get dressed for work. And that could be your own job, that could be working for somebody else, it doesn't matter. As long as you're excited, you're passionate, and you can't wait to start every day. Because I got to tell you, if you wake up with that mindset where today could be the best day of my life, not only are you going to live a very happy life, you're going to make people around you very happy because attitude is contagious. And if you show up with a really great, encouraging, inspired attitude, it's contagious and people will follow suit. So I grew up in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I was originally born in Manhattan and had lived there for the first 6 years of my life before we moved to small suburban northern New Jersey, which is pretty cool and not like those Jersey Shore douchebags you see on television, but more like a community of people who work hard and are more blue collar, and that's kind of who my parents were. My dad was a really amazing man. He was a special education teacher who worked in Harlem, Washington Heights, and the Bronx, New York. And I was lucky enough to get to go see him in action a lot of times. He would take me when I didn't have school, and I would see these young men, how he treated them and how he helped people who had not really been given a chance to be successful, as young men really thrive in some horrible situations. So that kind of shaped me as a kid and helped me understand the importance of doing your part to help others. And really, I saw how genuinely he cared about other people's successes and not even so much his own. Like his success was seeing someone else graduate or get off a street corner or get a job. And I think that, as a young kid, seeing that, it really changed my whole perspective on life. So as I grew up, I got to spend a lot of time with him. And I also spent a lot of time with my uncle, who was another huge role model for me, who was a trader on Wall Street and a very smart man, and wound up donating a lot of his resources to various charities. So I saw two men who donated their resources, both time and money, to changing the world. When I was 15, my dad was diagnosed with colon cancer, and he died 48 days after that diagnosis. You know what's weird? My producer told me the other day throughout this entire YouTube clip where I talk about my whole life and my father and my uncle and all these people, I never even mentioned their name. And I realized that, I never thought about saying my dad's name out loud before because it was just too painful. Because, when you say it's your dad, it's a real person, obviously, but the memories aren't as real as when you say the person's name. It kind of puts it into this really harsh perspective, like, oh shit, my dad's really not coming back, and he's not with me anymore, And I've always felt like when I said his name, it reminded me of like what it looks like on the gravestone, and at the cemetery that he's buried at, and it kind of scares the shit out of me. But I think it's important for me to say my dad's name, Peter Mehl, because not only was he an incredible person, a lot of people might have the same kind of feelings about a loved one that they've lost, and maybe this will give them the power to say the person's name out loud and feel comfortable hearing it or seeing it on paper. Because I gotta say, whenever I look at my dad's name on the computer or notes or written down or old documents or photos, it's kind of a trip, and it makes things really scary and real. But I think that's why I've never said his full name before. And same as my uncle Mark. Incredible guy, an incredibly inspiring man, was a Wall Street trader, and also a huge supporter of various charities, and a very philanthropic, humanitarian-like person. And they definitely deserve their names to be said. So my dad's name was Peter Mehl, and my uncle's name was Mark Mehl, and I miss them greatly. So it was a complete shock to the system. And I remember being 15 years old and thinking, okay, well, what am I going to do with my life now? I'd lost my dad, I'd lost my best friend, and I'd really lost, our family's compass, because he was really the patriarch of our family. So when I was home after the funeral, I sat down when I finally had some time alone and created a list of things I wanted to accomplish in my life, because one of my greatest fears in life is passing away at a young age and not fulfilling my legacy. And having grown up with two men who had created tremendous legacies for themselves and for my family, I wanted to really set some outrageously high goals for myself. So even if I don't succeed, I will push myself out of my comfort zone and maybe help a lot of people in the process, and really just change my life and change the world, hopefully, because that's my goal. So I created what I call the list, and what I do with the list is I write a goal and I try to reach it. And if someone helps me reach that goal, because we never reach anything by ourselves. A lot of people like to think they're self-made men or women, and you're not. There's no such thing. Someone had to help you along the way, whether it's some small gesture that you don't even realize, or someone you're just forgetting to give credit where credit's due. So whenever someone's helped me in my life reach a goal, achieve something, I always pay it forward. And so with this list, I started at 15 years old, and now I'm almost 32. So it's almost been 16 years since my father passed away, and since I created this list. And when someone helps me achieve something, I help someone achieve something on their list, or even if they don't have a list, maybe I help them create one. So moving forward, when I got to college, I barely got into college because everyone, my whole life I thought I was dumb. I thought I was a stupid person because I would study for tests and fail them. I would do extra credit to get my grades back up. I would sit in front of the teacher before our next test, and I would study with him or her, and I would fail. And I just couldn't understand why I wasn't doing well. And, all my teachers thought I was just a jock who didn't care and wanted to just goof off and slide by. And it wasn't the case, because my dad was a teacher, and my mom took studies very seriously. So why would I do that? So what happened was, after I'd taken SATs and done really poorly on them, that was back when it was out of 2 parts. Now it's out of 3, but when it was out of 2 parts, I think I got the lowest possible score on the math and the highest possible score on the English, so they thought I cheated because why would it be that lopsided? So they made me take it again, and they made me take it again in front of like people from the Board of Education, and they called my mom, and it was just like a whole big thing. So I took it, and I got relatively the same score. I think I scored a little bit lower, but not by much, so they knew that there was something wrong. So they finally tested me for learning disabilities and find out I'm dyslexic and I have problems with reading comprehension and you know, cognitive behavioral things like that. So I then now, as a senior, already rejected by 90% of the schools I applied to, am trying to get into college. So, and going through the hardest time of my life, losing my father, that summer. So the University of Hartford kind of took a chance on me and said, we'll accept you as long as you go through our program. And their program was, I would have to be in regular class with regulars, or what they considered regular students, and then study on my own with teachers, and they kind of shaped the way that I would study and learn how to study. And it really helped. I really learned the right ways to study and learn for myself. But the whole point of that is that, our whole lives we accept what people tell us. So forever I thought, oh, well, I'm dyslexic, I'll never be undyslexic, right? Or I'm a bad test taker, well, that's it, I'm a bad test taker. Well, that's just an agreement we make with ourselves. What if I said, well, tests aren't really my thing, but this is how I'm going to improve? Or I was dyslexic, but if I actually do the exercises and I actually learn the right way for my brain to connect the dots, I will no longer be dyslexic. Because for years I just accepted what life kind of gave me, and I didn't get anywhere. And then once I started to realize that if you make your own path and create your own story in life, it unfolds exactly how you want it to. And so now I'm no longer dyslexic, I no longer have learning disabilities, and I can read things and remember them, unless they're really boring, and then I have selective memory, right? But after college, I graduated, I walked on, I played baseball for a year, and it was great. And then I decided that, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to life than, well, I'm a college graduate, so now I got to go to graduate school, or I have to, find a wife and things like that. And I didn't want to do that. So what I did was I started writing for a newspaper because I thought, well, I got a degree in communications and journalism. This will be great. So I started writing for this big newspaper in New Jersey and was promised a sports section. So I thought this will be the greatest thing ever. I'll be like Bill Simmons. I'll write these funny pop cultural related sports stories and people will love me, except for the fact that the man I was supposed to take over for went through a horrible divorce and then said, I have to stay so I can make alimony payments. So you're going to be writing lifestyle and family. Now, I don't know if you know what lifestyle and family section is, but it is awful. It was basically me going to the courthouse and listening to two citizens argue over if someone's tree was in their yard a couple inches and needed to be cut down. And that was it. So I only lasted about 3 months before I wanted to kill myself and stopped. So now I'm 22 and I'm unemployed and I have a college degree. So my confidence wasn't at an all-time high. And at that time, my uncle, who was one of my biggest role models, was getting more ill with muscular dystrophy, which is a form of Lou Gehrig's disease. So what was hard about that was, I always knew as a kid that he was going to be ill and deteriorate slowly and pass away. And I kind of, in my brain, thought, well, I have my dad, so when my uncle gets sick and passes away, I'll have that kind of rock to lean on. But now that my dad had been gone already for 5 years at that point, I really didn't know what to do because it was kind of like my whole family's falling apart and I'm losing everybody. I was looking for a job and my mom, always looking out for me, God bless her heart, she said, hey, this really cool sports factory, and that's kind of what it was. It was a gigantic, I think it was a carpet cleaning warehouse that went out of business. So this company, Parisi Speed School, had a 50,000 square foot facility to train athletes and regular people in it was like half a health club on one side and half sports performance on a 100-yard turf on the other. And it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. So I walk in there with no degree, with no practical experience, and I said, "Hey, I want to get a job here." And I walked in there with a suit and tie, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy because they were in like polo shirts and like windbreaker pants and comfortable athletic wear, and I'm this like young dude, with all this like razor burn from shaving on my face, and I'm wearing a suit, and they're like, "What is this guy doing?" So I asked for a job, and I asked for Martin Rooney and Bill Parisi, the guys who ran the gym and who were two of the most famous people and personas in fitness right now. And they were like, they were upstairs working, and they had a big boardroom where they had these meetings that overlooked the whole facility. So I asked for them thinking, oh, they'll never come down here. I'll never get these two guys in front of me. And the receptionist says, hold on, they'll be right down. So now I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, she called my bluff. I'm screwed. So they come down, and I have this resume, and it has nothing on there about, like, training people or training kids or anything. So they come down, and they're like, hey, did we speak to you the other day? Because it looks like I was there for, like, a second, like, follow-up meeting. So I'm like, oh, actually, you didn't, but I'm here for a job. And so they look at my resume, and they look at each other like, is this guy for real? So Martin said something to Bill, and he walks off to talk to some other trainers, and Bill's standing there, and I knew that Bill's the kind of guy that if I just show persistence, this guy's going to respect that, because he started this company out of a van. He would travel to different parks and different colleges and different high schools and work one-on-one with college teams and players and high school kids just to get a reputation that he was a hard worker and was great at training athletes, so he could eventually open a facility and have it be full of people. And it worked. So I was like, you know what? Me and this guy are cut from the same cloth. He's a good dude. He's going to want me to be successful. I just got to prove it. So I said, Bill, I need this job. I don't need it for the money. I need it for my soul. I know this will feed my soul, make me feel good, and make me want to help people. And he said, I love your passion, but you don't have a degree, so we can't hire you. And I said, well, in my brain, I was like, don't take no for an answer. Don't take no for an answer. All those things you hear, but it's very hard when you're in that moment to do. And so I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I said, listen, Bill, I'll be your intern. You don't have to pay me. And like, I saw him raise an eyebrow, and he's like, but we don't have an internship program. So I said, I'll be your first intern. And he said, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. Good luck, best of luck. And he walks away, and I was crushed. I was like devastated. So I'm leaving, and I'm holding my pathetic resume in my hand. And I like got to my car, and I said, you know what? This is a turning point in your life, Ben, because you can just accept this no and then go back to some bullshit job, or you can really, really prove your self-worth here. So the next day, I only had one suit, so I showed up, same suit, same tie, same everything, and I just sat on the steps, and I waited for him to come in, and I was there at 5 a.m., and he gets there at 5:45, and he gives me this look like, oh, God, is this kid going to stab me? And I was like, Mr. Parisi, Bill, please let me be your intern. I'll just be the first one, and you can build the program around me. And he said, no, thank you, and he leaves. So that was Tuesday. So Wednesday, same thing. I show up. He doesn't come in on Wednesdays. I didn't know that. The receptionist is there, and she says, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm here to be, Mr. Parisi's intern. And she said, I know that he said you guys don't have an internship program, so you have to leave or I'm going to call the cops. So I had to leave. Thursday, same thing. Friday, I show up with 2 cups of coffee, one for Bill, one for Martin. They walk past me, and they give me this look like this guy's not going to give up. So Martin walks away, and Bill stays there for a second. He says, if I give you this opportunity, you promise to bust your ass and work your hardest to be the best trainer you can be. And I said, it was like that moment in Rudy where he makes the team, right? And he's like running around barefoot outside. And I said, well, if you give me this opportunity, that means I'm your first intern, right? And he said, you're our first intern. And he took the coffee from me, and he walked away. And I was so excited. And I remember the looks I got from people who were already like working there as established trainers, looking at me like, is this guy for real? Like, that's so pathetic. He's not even getting paid, and he's excited. But that's what life's all about. If you're not doing something that excites you and genuinely moves you and makes you so passionate and hungry for success, then what are you doing? Then why are you even here? Why are you even breathing? You're taking up space. I decided that I wanted more. And so I started working with people with special conditions like Parkinson's, Asperger's syndrome, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, cancers, AIDS, HIV, all these different kinds of things, which really helped me understand that life is a lot greater than getting somebody big muscles or a 400-pound deadlift or running a 40 time faster. The most humbling times in my life have made me realize that life is not all about me. I think we get to a point where we start thinking, well, I'm the center of the universe. Because you go to sleep with Ben, you wake up with Ben, everything you see is Ben from Ben's point of view, right? Except for the fact that, life is only as good as what you can do for other people. And I really believe that. And I saw that with my dad and I saw that with my uncle. And that like I said, shaped my life. Had I not seen those men and been around them, I don't know what I would be like today. Maybe I would be selfish. Maybe I would be arrogant or cocky or lazy. I don't know. I'm so grateful that I was able to see them inspire others and help others and change their lives. And it made me kind of crave that. So as I grew in the personal training industry, I wanted to change people's lives and not just, get them more fit. I think that's important too, but if you can get someone off blood pressure medicine, or if you can help someone walk who couldn't walk right because their hip was messed up, or if you have somebody who the doctor says, listen, if you don't get your life together, you're going to die, and you can change that. I mean, to me, there was nothing greater. So after doing that for about 5 years, I moved on and started working out of a physical therapy clinic and started designing the strength and rehabilitation protocols for all the patients in that clinic. And that was interesting too, because that taught me patience. Going from a schedule which was 5 a.m. to 8 o'clock at night, every day except for Saturday and Sunday was, draining. But it went by fast because you're working with all different types of people. You're working with athletes, you're working with regular, everyday people, you're working with people with special conditions. Now to work with somebody who their main focus for that hour is to just extend their leg or do knee flexion or, move their arm above their heart. That taught me patience, and that taught me that sometimes in life you have to take a step back and you have to slow down. And that was a great experience because it helped me understand what I really want to do in terms of this career. Because I didn't want to train forever, and I knew that training was kind of a means to an end. So one of my other passions my whole life has been writing, creative writing specifically, whether it be short essay to screenwriting. I had written a book when I was 28 called Surviving New Jersey, about my life growing up in New Jersey and the experiences I've had and the loss in my family and the funny things that happen to me on a daily basis. And it kind of really stoked this fire about, well, I'm looking around and all my friends are getting married and all my friends are having kids and they're buying homes. And I started to understand that everyone thinks life is this linear design where you're a kid, you go to school, you go to college, you go to graduate school, you have a wife, you get married, you have a kid, you buy a home, you then watch your kids grow up, they have kids, your grandparents, you're dead. And I feel like that is such a flawed model. I'm not saying those things are bad. Those are some wonderful experiences to have. But I feel like I said before that we have to make our own path in life. And we should aspire to live the best quality of life we can. For some people, that's climbing Mount Everest, right? For some people, that's just being the best husband, janitor, astronaut, whatever they do that they can be. And they might want to live a modest life, that's fine. But everyone should strive to be the best version of themselves and help other people in the process. Because when you help others, you become the best version of yourself anyway. So for me, at 28, I was just like, what am I doing with my life? I've already accomplished what I want to do in this career. I've done everything with personal training and strength and conditioning that I've wanted to do. I've worked with all these different wonderful people and had all these wonderful experiences, but I felt still there's got to be something more than this, right? So I decided to pack up all my things and move to California and pursue a writing career. So I did that. I literally took my life savings and I moved across the country, and I knew one person, my good buddy Adam, who I went to college with, who let me stay on his couch. And for 2 weeks I searched for an apartment, and then I found one in the valley in Sherman Oaks, and I Actually wound up living with a former friend of mine that I knew from college who became my roommate. And I just started hustling, and I got a job personal training to pay the bills while I could write at night and try to make things happen. So um, I was terrified, and it wasn't easy. I was like, I don't know anybody. How am I going to make this happen? What if I suck at writing? What if I'm not as good as I think I am? All these fears and self-doubts that we have as people are normal. And I think a lot of times we allow that self-judgment to snowball out of control and make us feel less than, and then we have that fear of judgment from the outside world. Well, what if so-and-so thinks that I'm a shitty writer? Or what if so-and-so thinks that me moving across the country was stupid, and what if I have to go back home and as a failure? But failure is not real. Failure is not a real thing unless you let it define you. And what I mean by that is I failed so many times in my life that I can't keep track. I really can't. I fail all the time. But the difference between my failures and maybe somebody else, or the difference between my failures now and my failures as a young man are, when I fail now, I look at the things that I did well, and I take away the things that I did well in those failures to move forward, to try again. Because think about this. If you never give up on your goal, you eventually have to get there, right? I mean, if you never quit at anything, then you win eventually. You might not win when you want to. You might not succeed on the exact day or moment or how you think you're going to, but you will. And that's why we know life is not linear. Because if everything happened in a straight line, we would just know when things were going to come true for us, or when we would fail, or when we would have heartache, or when we would have happiness. That's the beauty of life, is that it's full of surprise. Every day you wake up could be the best day of your life. It really could, as long as you have that mentality. So for me, when I moved out to California, I tried to keep that in mind, and I decided no matter what happens, I'm going to wake up and assume that every single day is going to be a day full of opportunity and growth and satisfaction and desire and achievement. And so I was living in an apartment. I was sleeping on an air mattress. I slept on an air mattress for 1.5 years to save money, so that in case, God forbid, an emergency happened, I wouldn't have to go back home. I could have bought a bed. I could have bought nice furniture. I could have done all these things, but I decided to not spend any of that money so that I could put all that resource into pursuing my dreams. So I convinced my former roommate from college, who's a great salesman, to be my manager, because I needed representation, right? Because whenever you pitch to an agent or a producer or somebody, they don't want to take unsolicited material. So I realized, how do I work smarter and not harder? And so what I did was, my manager and I, we pretended to be like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and we just started pitching my idea to people, and they started taking us seriously because I had representation and I had a good script. So now I was getting that feedback that, okay, you are a good writer, people are taking you seriously. And if you take yourself seriously and you hold yourself accountable, people will come up to your standards. And the biggest thing that really changed my whole outlook on life and my mindset and helped me really achieve massive results in everything I do is I hold myself 100% accountable. My success or my failure is because of something I did or did not do. And that allowed me to have crystal clear focus and then leverage that focus to achieve the results I wanted to achieve. So we started shopping my script around, we met some people who were interested, and then we finally had a producer. So had a producer on board, I got an agent because of this. Life was good, right? So I'm in California, I didn't know anybody, and I made shit happen. And I kind of took a step back from there, and I thought, well, why did I have all that self-doubt and that self-negativity and that self-talk 5 or 6 months ago saying, this was a mistake, you don't know anybody, nothing's happening for you, you're working 12-hour days just to make ends meet, this is stupid. And it makes you realize how disabling that kind of talk and behavior is. And there's no need for it. However, we're human, and you have to forgive yourself. And I started to forgive myself for doing that. And I started to think about, well, you know, if I'm nicer to myself and I practice being nicer to myself every day, maybe it's like a muscle, and maybe it'll flex and it'll grow, and I'll not have those thoughts and those feelings and those emotions anymore. And slowly over time, what happened was I stopped automatically going to those negative places, even if things didn't go well. I stopped thinking of things in terms of, you suck, you didn't do this, what's your problem? And I started thinking of things in, okay, this is where we are, what's the solution? And it helped me move faster in the right direction. Because from being around a lot of the people who I know who are successful, success favors momentum, and it favors people who move quickly and don't wait and hesitate. So I started just moving faster and developing those skills. So the movie I wrote revolved around Buddy Holly, the former musician, very famous musician from the 1950s, who I consider to be the catalyst in rock and roll history, but that's for a whole another conversation. So I flew to Dallas, Texas, and met with his widow, with my manager. Here I am, a year later from moving out from California, sitting in the home of one of the most famous people in pop cultural history, in his home with his wife. And I just thought to myself, if I can get her on board, then anything in life is possible, literally. Because I'm just a kid from New Jersey who everyone said was dyslexic and stupid and couldn't get, higher than a C+ average in high school. I lost my dad, I lost my uncle, I lost my grandparents at that point. I didn't have much family left. I don't have any money in my pocket. I had one suit and it had a hole in it, and what I did was I bought it was a khaki colored suit, and I was sitting across from Miss Holly in a khaki colored suit, and my only suit that I could afford, and it had a hole in it. And what I did was I took Scotch tape, because it was the same color as the suit, and I taped the hole so you couldn't tell that there was a hole because it blended in. That's how pathetic my suit was. But I decided that once I put the suit on, it was like, Superman's cape or something. I was going to decide that when I'm wearing this, I'm the most confident person in the room, and I believe in myself 100%. And it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. All that matters is my passion for the project that I'm doing and the things that I believe in. And so when I pitched this idea to her, she loved it, and now we're actually working together to make this film happen, and we're raising finances now. So if you have money out there, you should check it out. Anyway, so we came away from that unbelievable experience, my manager and best friend Matt and I, and it just opened my eyes to realize that anything's possible. And when I went to college and I met Matt, he was one of the people who really changed my life, because he was always a very confident guy, social butterfly, and got me out of my comfort zone. I was terrified talking to people, and especially women, because I didn't ever have that like birds and bees talk with my dad. He had passed away right when I was going through puberty. My older brother and I didn't have that conversation, and I kind of just never learned those skills that you need to learn as a young man. And so he helped me get out of my comfort zones, and when the old cliche is, when you get out of your comfort zones, great things happen, but it shouldn't really be a cliche, because it's so true. Like, when you put yourself out there, it's scary as hell. Like, making this video right now for me is terrifying. I know I seem like I'm put together and I have a cool beard and a cool hat on, but it's scary for me because there's always that fear of judgment. Like, oh, what are people going to think? What are they going to say that I'm making this video? And what if they think I can't help others? But, one of the best quotes I ever heard was, what you think about me is none of my business. And so when I really started to understand that and, and live by that code, my life started to really improve. After that experience in Dallas, I came back to California and started to really, really, really push for this script to become a reality, because now I had this support and this groundswell of people. And just to prove how life is not linear, we had a meeting with this producer who I'd been working with for months and had gone through hundreds of emails with, who was a script consultant who had no other job except for telling me that this line needs to be funnier, this line needs to be erased, you should make this a little bit more dramatic, change this, change that. Wanted to be the producer. So we decided to have a conversation with this person, And we met, and what they asked for was very unrealistic and ridiculous. So my manager and I decided that we would not be moving forward with this person. Come to find out, while I'm at work personal training the next day, that her lawyer had sent me a letter saying, we're suing you because they felt that this person had wrote the script. So this was a crushing blow for me because I had spent 6 years working on the script. I had just gotten Miss Holly on board, and I had no money to fight any kind of frivolous lawsuit. So I was like, what am I going to do? I feel like a loser. I've come this far, and now it's all falling apart. And I started to, like I said before, practice that self-love and said, you know what? This is just a speed bump. You're going to figure it out. How do you get some action? How do we create a solution out of a problem? And so what I did was I had the option of paying this person the money that they wanted, which was an obscene amount, and it was basically extortion, writing a new script and giving this person credit. So it would be co-written by me and this person, even though I had gone through about 88 drafts. I don't know if you've ever written a screenplay before, but 88 drafts of a script is like getting a master's degree in screenwriting. It takes a long time. So I didn't want to do that. And the third option was start from scratch, rip the script script up and start over, which I felt like could not be an option because that would just mean all these 6 years were for nothing. So I had to make a decision. 29 days went past, and I decided, you know what? If I'm going to inspire people and I'm going to make change in this world and I'm going to tell people that they can do anything, it's time to put my money where my mouth is. So I decided, you know what? If you're going to lie and say you wrote my script and you're so good, write another one. So I ripped the script up and I started over. Because you know what? If you're going to challenge me and my name and my character, you got another thing coming. So I wrote a brand new script from scratch. And the blessing in disguise was it taught me to always believe in myself. And the script came out better. It came out better than the original. So a lot of times in life we think, well, I'll never be able to accomplish something because of this, right? Because of this external force. But all it takes is that internal belief in ourselves that helps us achieve anything. So I wrote the new script, and now the movie's about to get funded. So it worked out. I decided there's got to be more than screenwriting, because I don't know if you've seen this pattern so far in this video, but I'm an overachiever and quite ridiculous. So I decided, I come from a family of artists. My mom's a brilliant artist. My grandmothers were both brilliant artists, and I have been blessed to have that inherited skill. And I wasn't doing anything. I couldn't give a painting away. I had created tons and tons of work, probably. I think I did 67 paintings in 1 year, which is pretty prolific by art standards. And I couldn't sell one of them. It was because of my mindset. And I had worked with an athlete years ago who could not hit a free throw. Now, for those of you who aren't basketball fans, a free throw is the closest shot on the court that's not contested. So you stand at the free throw line, which is about, I think it's like 18 feet from the hoop, it might be less, and you usually get one or two shots, and no one can block you, and you just shoot it. So a lot of times it's a mental aspect because it's such an easy shot that people miss all the time because you're not being guarded, right? So I'd worked with this guy years ago, this athlete of mine, and we didn't shoot free throws. And I remember him looking at me like, you're crazy. Every coach I've ever had has made me practice hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of free throws. And I said to him, okay, well, where's that gotten you? Because you still suck at shooting free throws. And he laughed. And thank God, because he was huge and he would kick my ass. But anyway, I said to him, what do you think about when you're shooting a free throw? And he said, I'm thinking about how much the crowd's going to boo if I miss, or how pissed my coach is going to be if I can't hit a free throw when the game's on the line. And I was like, well, that's your problem. You're making a negative association with this outcome that hasn't even happened yet. Like, you haven't even shot the ball yet, and you're already going to miss. Before you even shoot, you're going to miss. So we actually looked at tapes of when he hit free throws and when he didn't. And when he hit the free throws, he looked back on the tape fondly, like smiling, and saying, yeah, I remember I was thinking about, what I was going to do after this game, what party I was going to go to when he was in college, right? Or when he was in high school, the things that when the game was a little bit more carefree and it wasn't a job. I said, well, look at this now. And we looked at the ones where he missed, and it was just, he would go to shoot, and there was a hesitation, and he would miss. And that hesitation was a mental hesitation, right? So what we did was we started to change the way he associated his success. And he went from being a 56% free throw shooter, which is horrible, because a good free throw shooter shoots in the 80s. A great shoots in the 90s, right? So average is low 70s. So imagine being 56%. You're going to lose your job. That's how bad that is. He went from 56 to 77 in 2 weeks working with me. And it wasn't because I did anything special. I think I'm a great coach and I'm a great motivator, but it was because he changed his mindset. So getting back to the artwork, I was like, oh my God, I just need to change my mindset, right? And how I'm displaying myself, not the art. So instead of charging $800 for a painting, which I thought was pretty good. I mean, at the time, like my biggest paycheck as a kid or a young adult was like, I think $1,600 or $2,000, working for somebody, training that was a little bit differently, but working for somebody. I think one time I worked like 60 hours, I made $1,600, and I was so excited. And then I started to realize how low my standards were for making money. Because, I come from a family of, my mom was an artist and my dad was a special ed teacher. It's not like they were bringing in big bucks. So for me, it was always like, you work hard and you make money. You can't make money. You don't know how to make money. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start charging $5,000 for painting. I remember I had a meeting with this guy who was a friend of a friend. So a good buddy of mine is a foothold in the art world and said, I'm going to put you in front of somebody who buys art. So I was terrified. I was like, I'm not really a salesman. I don't know how to do this. So he looked at one of my paintings and he said he thought it was great and he thought it was beautiful, and he asked me about it, and I told him the concept and my philosophy behind the art. And he said, okay, how much? And my heart was racing, and I was like, and then I said, you know what? You should ask for 1,000. My inner monologue was like, you should ask for 1,000 because you could get 1,000. You could probably get 1,000 for this. But then, the other part of me was like, don't chicken out. Like, you decided it was going to be 5,000. If you get 1,000, you're just going to be mad you didn't say 5. So I said, it sells for 5,000. And notice how I said it sells for is because I wanted him to believe in the confidence I had in myself. And he didn't say anything, and he walked away, and he looked at some other paintings that were on the wall, and I thought, oh man, I blew it. This guy's not buying anything from me. I'm a loser. I can't do anything. What the fuck was I thinking? So about 20 minutes goes by, and the guy leaves, and I'm like, oh, man, I blew it. And my buddy comes up to me, and he says, what did you say to him? And I said, I told him the price. I don't know. Did I blow it? And he hands me a check for $5,000 that the guy wrote. The whole point of this video is that anything really is possible. And people say that when you're a kid, you can be anything. But the problem is they don't teach you how to do it. Yeah, I can go out and I can tell anybody, yeah, you can be president, or yeah, you can be congresswoman, or yeah, you can be the biggest, celebrity or model or athlete in the world. But if someone doesn't help you, and if someone doesn't give you the resources to shine and to be successful, and give you the tools on how to talk to yourself and how to understand failure and how to cope with it and how to use it, you cannot succeed. And so a lot of the stuff I had help with, and a lot of the stuff I had to find out on my own, and I want to help people. And my goal with this is to just teach people from my past experiences and what's happening with me now, and the people I work with and associate with and know and meet, that everyone has a story, but the ones who are so successful create their own stories. Speaking of helping others, next week will be my first interview of this podcast, and it's a special one. You need to tune in because I got to speak with Tamika Jacobs, model, actress, photographer, and now new author, about her childhood and what motivated her to write her new autobiographical book, Bring Jenny Home. This is an incredible, moving, passionate story about overcoming tremendous obstacles and turning into a wildly successful person. That just about wraps it up for this episode of Mad Potential. If you like what you hear, please recommend this show to your friends, family, anybody you think would be entertained or informed by what we're doing. We really need your help to get listed on iTunes. It's because of you that we're doing this journey. We want to help as many people as possible. So please let us know if you're listening. Let us know if you like the show. I'm your host, Ben Mehl. You can find me on Twitter at It's Ben Mehl, ITSBENMEHL, and my website, www.madpotential.com. The Mad Potential podcast is produced by Christopher Eaton. You can find him on Twitter at The Mystery Tin or his website, themysterytin.com. The Mad Potential podcast is part of the Mystery Tin Podcast Network. You can find this episode, past episodes, and more on www.themtpn.com/Mad Potential. And you can follow the Mystery Tin Podcast Network on Twitter at Mystery Podcast. And remember, no matter what anyone says, no matter if things seem bleak, keep your chin up and keep chasing your dreams because you've got mad potential.